Warning. This wizard has been linked to rapid increases in the desire to buy way too many books. Prolonged exposure to this wizard has been known to cause side effects, including destroyed TBRs, complete lack of shelf space, damage to wallet, angry spouses at the amount of book purchases. Make sure to use extreme caution if you come across this wizard, and always attend your Book Buyers Anonymous meetings if you've been infected. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be doing what is sure to be part one of this massive book haul. And it hasn't been that long since I last had a book haul, but I went and visited Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and between him giving me a bunch of books and also us going to way too many bookstores, I have a huge haul of books, and so let's talk about them and go through. There's a lot here, so like I said, this probably will end up being two parts, but we'll split as needed. I'm going to film it all in one go, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I have to mention, because it's super awesome, and he told me about this one. He'd gotten it as a gift, and then he ended up telling me about it when I bought a used copy of the book. But he got me a signed Shadow March by Tad Williams. I had just recently gotten this, and let me find the signature here. So a signed copy that he got. I had just recently gotten this. Not only is this in like way better condition than the one I had just recently bought used, which wasn't bad, but this is much better. But also it's signed and even Mylar wrapped it for me. So this is definitely going to be replacing the one I have in my collection, and I am super happy because this is super, super cool. I don't have that many signed books, and so it's always really, really cool to have one, and I am super pumped. I was already excited to read this series, and I'm just being able to have this signed copy is just awesome. Also, I really like the covers for all of these. Just, they're fun. Old school fantasy covers. So that one was definitely great. Now, this will be a mix. I'll specify if I bought them at a bookstore, if I got them from him, because it's kind of a mix from there. The next one, though, is one I picked up, which I couldn't believe my luck at finding, because it was The Curse of Chalian by Lois McMaster Bugle. I have 3 other books in this series. This, though, is the first, and I had been looking into it because I didn't have this one. And apparently, like, this takes place later in chronological order, so you don't necessarily have to start with it. Usually I just read in publication order for a lot of books, so I'm like, I guess I can just start with the ones I have, because apparently that's acceptable. But then I actually find this in great condition, and I had been really randomly found the other ones before I even really knew anything about them, but then was excited. So finding a fantastic edition of this, I am really excited to try this series. This is definitely one that just the longer I've had, the more I've been really, really curious to read. Funnily enough, I mentioned not that many signed books, but 2 out of the 3 ones I found at half-price books were signed. This one I don't think is. I never actually checked, but that would be too crazy of a coincidence. No, it's not, which makes sense. I'm certainly not that lucky, but so finding that was pretty awesome to get. Next, which are some books that Andrew gave to me, because he's had these a while, and he bought them because of me, but it's taken him so long to get to him, he figured he'd do ebooks, which a lot of this is either stuff that he's read, and so was passing along to me, or is just needing space, because like me, he has a huge problem collecting books. But he gave me his like old school Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever hardcovers, which he's also my wrapped, but these are like old, I think from like around when it was originally published type copies. Let me check the year. So it shows copyright, 1977. So these are old, and they're in like remarkably good condition for the time. But he got these. I remember him getting them, a whole lot of the other ones too. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I have actually a pretty, like I've shown before, I found this random box set, which is where I first read the series, because I just happened to find that at Half Price Books and wasn't familiar with it. And so that was cool. But these are some awesome hardcovers, and I'm a sucker for hardcovers. I know some people like the paperbacks. Those weren't bad to read by any means, but I'm a sucker for hardcovers. So I'm super excited about those as well. So the next up was a fun coincidence while we were book shopping. So we went to like a Goodwill and just checked the book section, and they ended up having this, which is Queen of Demons by David Drake, which is the sequel to Lord of the Isles. Now I've had a copy of Lord of the Isles mass market paperback for, a couple of years at least now, and have not gotten to it. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know what? I'll grab it. The very next bookstore we went to had a hardcover copy of Lord of the Isles by David Drake. And so I'm like, that is a really weird coincidence, but pretty cool. So I decided to get it so that I have a match here. And so this is... I have some interesting prompts on it, including one from Stephen R. Donaldson. So that's another fun coincidence. But this I've had for years and I haven't read it. But so what it says here is, that's a bit about him. So now in Lord of the Isles, Drake returns to fantasy with a towering and complex epic of heroic adventure filled with passion, magic. You're not going to tell me about the darn book? All right, so into this world, survivors from the last magical peak intrude. Tenoctress, a quiet and scholarly sorceress, swept out of the past at the moment of final catastrophe as her civilization sank beneath the sea. The ghost of the greatest ruler, King Karis of the Isles, and the great magician known only as the Hooded One, who actually caused the ancient catastrophe. So this does appear to be, which this is in remarkably good condition too. We've got lots of islands, so here's a fun map. So I especially now that I have nice hardcover copies, we'll have to get to this. But yeah, I picked this up, like I said, mass market because I really like the cover. I just love these old school covers. So that was a really fun thing to find. Next up, which is another book shopping find, grab the Crackpot Trail by Stephen Erickson. I just sort of collect the other Malazan books as I come across them. I'm not going to read them for I don't know how long, because I honestly would probably rather reread the main 10 before I read the others, but I've just been kind of getting them. Except for maybe The Goddess Not Willing. I still want to read that one. But anyway, so I found that one. That's the... I think this is the first one, Bouchelain and Corbel Brooch. So I know there are several that are more like novellas. So that was a really cool find as well. And add to my way too big collection of Malazan books I haven't read. I grabbed, which I had the first one in this, but this is the third book of the Court of Fives series, which is maybe called Court of Fives. Is it called something else? I don't actually know. But called Buried Heart by Kate Elliott. I already have the first one in this size of hardcover, so I also thought, I'm like, okay, I will grab it. And actually, the person we were at the bookstore with said that she has actually heard good things about the series. Because when I did, and pretty recently, I did haul the first book, and I'm like, I bought this because it was Kate Elliott. I didn't read what it was about, and it didn't really sound up my alley. But it sounds like it actually has had pretty good reviews, at least according to that person. Apparently, they had several copies that have been bought, so that is encouraging. Oh, this is a really fun one. So this was a random find at a bookstore as well, and it looked so ridiculous I couldn't resist. So it's called The Legend of Jig the Dragon Slayer, and this is the cover here. So this is a really great condition. But this is by Jim C. Hines, and it's an omnibus of Goblin Quest, Goblin Hero, and Goblin War. And it sounds basically like it's like the runt goblin in like a fantasy world, basically, who's getting into trouble and like having to deal with like heroes and adventurers going on quests. So it's almost like just that, like instead of you have, normally your goblin horde enemies, this is the runt goblin just getting into trouble. And so it's supposed to be like somewhat like parody, comedic, and whatnot as well. This is definitely one of those books. I don't know when I will get to this, but I was so curious, and this ridiculous cover just made me interested, so I picked it up, and I definitely will give it a shot. But that was another just kind of fun random one. We then have, boy, these things are chunky. The Legacy Trilogy. I had to remember what it was called. I should have been really obvious. The Legacy Trilogy by Matthew Ward. So it's Legacy of Ash, and Legacy of Light, and Legacy of Steel. These things are huge. Like, I brought them home with me, and they've been sitting on my shelf waiting for me to film. Somehow I didn't realize they were that big. But so he passed this one along to me as well, and I know he had said some good things about this. So this one, the blurb is, this is for the first one, Legacy of Ash. A shadow has fallen over the Tressian Republic, but as Tressia falls, heroes rise. Victor Akadra is the Republic's champion, a warrior without equal. He also hides a secret that would see him burned as a heretic. Josiri Trellin is Victor's sworn enemy. A political prisoner, he dreams of reigniting his mother's failed rebellion. Callan Treelim, Josiri's sister, seeks only to break free of their tarnished legacy, to escape the expectations and precedents. I don't know why I said that, the word is prejudice, that haunt the family name. So that's this series. Apparently I can't read anymore either. I just was caught up and decided to change the words. But that's another one. This is a big trilogy. But like I said, I had heard good things from Andrew, so excited to get to that one. Next up is another trilogy that Andrew actually just finished reading, and this is the Chasing Graves trilogy by Ben Galley. And so this includes Chasing Graves, Grim Solace, and Breaking Chaos. And these are interesting covers, kind of like more new school. But I'll talk all day about how I love the like old school fantasy covers. But you get some like that's pretty nifty right there. So this one I know from because Andrew told me a lot about it. And this one is basically it takes place in a city where when you die, somebody can like take your soul and then force your soul into slavery. And so that's kind of like the main bit there is like the dead can just be used as slaves. And I know from hearing Andrew, it sounds like it definitely is one of those stories sometimes where you just kind of have to suspend disbelief, but that if you do, it'll be enjoyable. And so it definitely sounds like a fun time. So we'll add it to the never-ending list of books that I need to read. So then the rest of this particular stack are all things that I picked up whilst we were just bookstore shopping. So the first one is Child of the Daystar by Bryce O'Connor. This is book one of the Wings of War series. So I picked this one up because this was a half-price book, but based on the book, I could tell this was self-pub, and I was pretty sure I'd heard of the author. And so this is the first of a series, and cover was kind of fun here. But this one is the blurb here, and it's a hard name to say. Raz Isul Arrow. So a sellsword of the utmost caliber, Raz is a killer of paramount skill and highest regard. Towering tall even amongst the Aetherian, a reptilian desert people of savage intellect and violent instinct, he is the only one of his kind to live free in the civilized confines of man's varied cultures. He has no need of loyalties, his sole affections pledged to the gold crowns that buy his time and skills wed to his blades. Raz's only friends are the moon and her stars and the shadows they bring with the night. So, like, dragon person stealth sword sounds kind of interesting. Super short book as well. So even though it's part of a series, short book supporting self-pub. So let me know if you have read this one. Because like I said, I was pretty sure I'd heard the author, but I'm not super familiar, obviously, so I decided to grab that. Then I grabbed Snakewood by Adrian Selby. Because I had heard about Adrian Selby, specifically, I think, originally from Slowly Read. And I know some other people who read some of his stuff and really enjoyed it. So I saw this, once again, a really nice condition hardcover. And I'm pretty sure I bought this while we were there. This could have been Book Outlet. I have some Book Outlet books in here, off to the side, too. But so this one, we have The Debts of Glory Must Be Paid. Mercenaries who give no quarter, they shook the pillars of the world through cunning, chemical brews, and cold steel. Whoever met their price won. Now their glory days are behind them, scattered to the wind, and with their genius leader in hiding, they are being hunted down and eliminated, one by one. So, like, really big, famous mercenaries being hunted down does sound pretty interesting. Like I said, I've heard really good things about this author, so I was very interested to find out more. So that completes the book haul so far. So like I said, I'll have to see if I end up splitting this up into two parts. I haven't decided. We'll see how long the video file is. But that completes this book haul. So let me know your thoughts on any of these books. You got lots to choose from to comment on. If you've read any of these, if there's any I should bump up, if there's any that you're happy to see, or just your thoughts in general, always happy to have those conversations. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord. If you want to chat any of these books, other books, really anything at all, it is a lot of fun and we would love to have you. And of course, we're really good at encouraging you to buy way too many books. So we have our Book Buyers Anonymous channel there as well, which may or may not be any help whatsoever. So it is what it is, though, but hopefully you have fun. Of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.